Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. Wayne Tuttle, your host once again. Please hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. Check out the website www.legendofsuperstitionmountains.com for other things. Dutch Hunter Rendezvous, November 14th, 15th, 16th. If interested in being one of our program's guest speakers, hit us up at the website or somewhere, or find a way to get in touch with us. We already have one person lined up, so we'd like to have 4, maybe 5 people for 10 to 15, 20 minutes to finish out our program. We'd like a lot of selective different stuff. So if you're interested, let us know. Everybody else be interested to hear from you. That being said and done, let's get to today's story. Now, today's story was going to be different. We're going to be knocking out a couple because Trevor's going to be in Germany, and we have to kind of get things spooled up and kind of pre-recorded while he's gone. But, as case would have it, we spent the day in the mountains with our good friend Frank Augustine, and we were filming, and we took with us another interesting individual we call friend and a fellow Dutch hunter, a gentleman by the name of Dallas Wright. And we had a great time, me, Trevor, Dallas, and Frank. And while I was out there, I got a moment, was down by my truck, and you get that self-reflective moment. And then when you do that, sometimes you're thinking about the mountains and the years, because it's been 50 some odd years, and you start thinking about it, and then a memory comes through. And it's funny how these do, because a lot of times when you're thinking about your personal anecdotes and stories, it's kind of closes off, but then you're in that moment and you're just looking around. And it was a beautiful day out in the 80s. We had a really nice breeze. And I got to sit there for a moment, and well, I wasn't really sitting, but I got to have that reflective moment, and I was like, I remember that time. Now, this occurs right around 2000. It's around the time Trevor was actually born. And it was kind of the end of my era of traveling in the mountains alone. Now, this could have been 2001, but I think it was probably around 2000. Be shortly after this, I would find the lostdutchman.net, I think it's .net, forum Ron Feldman had created. And then I would become familiar and begin going in the mountains with Randy Wright primarily, but also Greg Davis, Jack Carlson, and some others. And as those trips started to happen, it kind of was a different phase for me during that time for the next probably 15 years or so, of all of us kind of spending more and more time in the mountains together. But this was one of those trips where I kind of was like, well, I want to make a trip out. I went to Peralta, the Peralta Trailhead, parked in the parking lot, took Cardiac, went up Cardiac. My plan was to go up Cardiac through Barks and go up Needle Canyon, swing around Bluff Spring on the north end, come down LaBarge, and come around Miner's Needle, and around Miner's Needle and back to the parking lot. A bit of a long walk, but I thought I'd make pretty good time. A lot of times on the flat open stretches, you kind of go into a jog or something. The weather was really beautiful that day. So I made Cardiac and stuff. Kind of almost started thinking about changing my plans while I'm going up Cardiac. Then I got down, hit the flats, started going around below Weaver's Needle on the east side. And I was feeling pretty good and started to hit that slope going down after Weaver's Needle. And I remember I kind of had a change of like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to go through Al Morrill's camp. Do I really want to swing all the way around the mountain? Now, it's not terrible because you're on a trail, so I could make pretty good time. But I was doing well ahead of where I thought. And I looked over and I thought, well, I'm in the kind of the area, and this is area Glenn McGill had been up on Bluff Springs, Al Morrow had been in, and others. I thought, well, I wonder if I can find a way up Bluff Springs, and I will try to shoot across Bluff Springs, and I will head to the south. Not the north end trail, which is kind of known, not much of a trail, but kind of work my way up through that way and see if I can cut myself back down to the Ely Anderson trail and come out. Figured, what could go wrong, right? So I started working my way up, and as I'm working, I'm kind of not cliffing out, but kind of, okay, that's not going to work. Turn around, come back a little, start working up this way, find a chimney, work my way up that way, find a spot I could move over. And I was kind of going north to south, kind of trying to find different routes working up. It was an area that I wasn't familiar with, kind of working my way up that way. So I was kind of looking and kind of choosing my options, and then sometimes having to come back a little and choose another option. A few times I kind of wondered if maybe I needed just to go back down and head back out and go through Barks Canyon and out Cardiac, because I thought, man, I'm using up a lot of time here, and I'm not quite sure what the time I'm making. But eventually I realized the canyons dropped away, and I'm you can't really, once you get into some of those areas, you can't see the top of the ridge line as much. It can be deceptive, as you think you're going to almost plateau out and be at the top and realize, oh, I got to go back this way and then go up more. And I kind of ended up in that kind of position where I was like, this is never ending. I'm never going to make to the top. So finally, and I could not tell you how long it was, I finally make it up to that point, and there's kind of a rocky ledge little area, good enough to sit on. And I walk over to it, and it's not a perfect view, but it's a really good view, looking back towards Blacktop Mesa and out across the mountains. And there's a breeze course coming up through the canyon, and I'm just sweating, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm looking out everywhere and thinking, I'm really fortunate in life to be able to do some of those things, and especially by yourself. And I do remember just thinking, how many more of these trips, how much of this time do I have in the mountains? Little did I know, many years, but probably not that many trips like that. While I did have quite a few with Randy, you do realize that time is running out where you can do some of those things. So it was a very reflective moment, and I'm sitting there, and all I can think of is, I'm the only person here. I can't hear anyone in the canyons. I don't smell campfires. It's just a very unique place to be in. This is totally, very, very cool. And from behind me, I hear, hey, you got a smoke? And I'm just kind of sitting there, did I just imagine that? Was that in my head? What is going on? And I kind of sit up straight, and I you do the tilt of the head, and then I hear, yeah, you got to smoke. And it was kind of a little bit of a New York, New Jersey accent. And I start to turn, and there's this guy coming around beside me. He's not very tall, maybe only 5'2", 5'3", kind of stocky. Dark hair, a little bit of salt and pepper. He comes around and goes, hey, how you doing? He says, you got a smoke? And I had a cigarette, I was smoking one. So I got a cigarette out, handed him a cigarette. And you know what the next question is? You got a light? Yeah, you got a light. He talked a little bit, kind of, well, I'm saying New York, New Jersey, a little like Joe Walsh. The singer, guitar player. So he's sitting next to me, and whoever he is, my Joe Walsh, is smoking a cigarette and goes, yeah, I saw you from down over there. That was pretty impressive, guy. And I'm just like, yeah, okay. And he's just sitting there, and then he starts talking. And as he's talking to me, he's talking, now he's obviously a bit older than me. And he talks about Al Morrill. He talks about Chuck Ayler. He talks about Al Reeser. A number of different people. Ed Buckwitz. He doesn't talk about anybody I'm really familiar with. And at that time, I wasn't really familiar with people people who would become closer friends later. And I'm just sitting there going, I don't know who you are. I don't know you. I don't know why you're so friendly. Unlike Randy Wright, who was always a very friendly, easygoing, trusting guy, I'm sitting there kind of on edge, smoking my cigarette, thinking, okay, I'm going to need to finish my smoke and then find a way to get away, because I don't know if this guy has friends, what this is all about. But I'm listening because it's interesting, and he'd be talking and go, Glenn McGill and his guys are up here. Now I'm a Killer Mountains fan, so I listened a bit, and before I knew it, I'd smoked 2 or 3 cigarettes and I'd been listening to these stories, which weren't in-depth stories. They were just things that I could tell he kind of had been around, but he could have picked it up from a book or any place else. So we talk. He smokes a couple of my cigarettes during the process. Very friendly. And he says, I got to get going out of here. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to get going too, because I said I didn't plan on taking this long. And I told him kind of what I'd planned on. But I said, I'm going to head out to Ely Anderson. And he goes, well, I'll walk you down that way. Kind of like he was walking me to the front door or someplace of his house. So we started working our way across Bluff Springs, and he made pretty good time. I mean, he didn't have very long legs. Like I said, he was one of those stocky guys, kind of dwarvish, but he was making pretty good time with me. And he talked the entire time. He never stopped talking, except he would pause once in a while and say, you got another one of them cigarettes? Yeah, sure. So I'm walking along, looking over at him, kind of, I guess I've made a friend. So we get down to where that flat area is on the south end. As you do the last, maybe, I don't know what it is, quarter mile, maybe a half mile, before you get to the top of the Ely Anderson. And he's definitely going then. I could not recall. It was just a litany of names and things that have happened in the mountains. And he seemed in really good spirits. And I'm just kind of walking along listening and kind of realizing, okay, I don't think anybody else is up here with him. He had a pack on. I never saw him drink any water or anything. I'm thinking, what is this guy, man? This guy is just like a mule. So we get to the Ely Anderson and we start to work our way down. And anybody that's been on the Ely Anderson, it's pretty well defined when you get by what I call the sheep wall at the top, which I don't know if it was to keep cattle or sheep up, but I always called it the sheep wall. And we get about there and we start working our way down the zigzag, and you can kind of see in front of you, there's a few places you turn corners and all. When you're going down, you hit, I would say about halfway, there's a turn, and then you're going east almost alongside that canyon, and then you turn back going south, and the trail just suddenly starts to fall out, and it becomes the cairns the rest of the way. You can kind of see the floor, and you have to turn. You're literally far east from where you'll end up coming off at the base. But we got around that point where there's those boulders and you're going back and forth and around. And all I know is he was talking, and then he'd, be quiet for a minute and got a smoke. And I realized, man, I'm going to run out of smokes before I get back to the parking lot. And at one point, I just look over and I realize, this guy's gone. And I stop and I wonder, well, did he say something about he was, by or anything? And I couldn't think of it. So I actually turned around, walked back around the corner a little bit, started looking around, looking down the hill, looking up the hill. And I had no sight, nothing. Do not know where this individual went. And I just kind of thought that was kind of a weird experience. This guy seemed really friendly, but I don't know who he is and what he wanted, or he just was happy to have the company. He said he was heading back down to the parking lot, but there's no way he got ahead of me, because I can see, at that point, you can see out in front of you going downhill. And I'm thinking, but where could he's got to be hiding in the rocks? Of course, then you're like, I wonder what the intentions are of this. So I decide, well, I'm just going to hoof it down and kind of keep an eye out because this just seems particularly odd. So I start making my way down, and it's a lot of loose rock there. So you have to really concentrate on what you're doing, but I'm trying to do it as best I can, keeping an eye out to see if I see this individual. I get down to the bottom, and you're just, what I'm trying to think, west of where the camp is. People like to camp in that grove of trees. Far west, obviously, of where the spring is. And I come out in that little area. It's kind of a rocky area, and there's a few saguaros there. So I came down through there, start heading east to get back up on the trail. Decide I thought briefly about going up Needle Canyon, different than I had talked to him about. But I realize I don't have an open view there as I work up Needle Canyon, and then I would work down into Barks. I wouldn't really be able to see anyone behind me and up above me because a lot of the way the trail works. So I thought it's best I head this way because I'll be able to turn around and have kind of a visual, a little distance behind me each time. Once I get down to Miner's Needle and hit the switchbacks, I'll lose a little of that, but I'll still be able to see someone on the trail if they're anywhere near me. And then once I hit the flats, I'll definitely, heading back west, I'll be able to see if anyone's near. So I went that way, entire back, never see a person. I didn't cross anyone's paths. I didn't catch up to anyone. And to be honest, I was boogieing at that point because it was just weird to me is where did this guy go? Did he go back up? I mean, he certainly didn't fall or anything happened to him. To this day, I have no idea who that guy was. I got back to the parking lot, got to my vehicle, just got something to drink, smoked a cigarette, kind of sat there. Now it was getting closer to sunset, and I realized I got to get going, but I was kind of, as the sun's setting, I'm kind of wondering if this guy shows up, what cars are and trucks are in the parking lot. I look around, there's a handful, people, a lot of people coming in, but most everyone's coming in, getting in a vehicle, heading up for Fremont Saddle, and then they've been coming back through Fremont Saddle. Nobody coming down Cardiac, nobody coming from the Miner's Needle area or Castle Rock. So I hung for a bit doing that, and I just realized, I just need to get going. There's two or three vehicles still there, and I couldn't tell, what am I going to, oh, that looks like a short, swarthy guy's car. So I got in, took off and headed for home. All the way home, once I got home, I tried, and there's not that much resource material. This is very early in the internet, but I've never seen anyone that quite looked like him. Have no idea who that was. I've never seen a picture, anything about it, anyone that recognizable. He had to be 5'1" or 5'2". He wasn't a very big guy, but he was stocky, and I would say, with all due respect, almost dwarvish, like a barrel. And definitely had that black hair, thick head of black hair and stuff. And very, very happy kind of guy. Kind of, hey, guy, how you doing? Yeah, you doing good? I'll tell you a story, and that kind of thing. Really nice guy. Might have been one of the reasons I was kind of open to start hiking with people. Because after the fact, I realized, hey, maybe times have changed. Though I never understood, and I never inquired with the guy. He was so talkative. I never asked him, what are you doing up here? How long you been up here? How long you been in the mountains? How familiar? Some things I would ask now. Back then, I was still kind of so surprised this guy showed up, and a little bummed he smoked my cigarettes. So there you go, a moment of reflection. And I thank Dallas and Frank and Trevor for going out with me today and having a pretty awesome day. But sometimes hanging out with some good people, having a good time, kind of feeling the cool air and the breeze coming through, and things start circulating through you and you start looking back. And we did have a couple talks about reminiscing over the last probably 20 years or so I've been in the mountains. And when you reminisce, things come up. And I didn't talk about this particularly to them But it did run through my head. I spent, now, it's not surprising, as much as we were out there together. At the point this happened, it was Frank and Trevor and Dallas were in one area, and I was off typically by myself doing my own thing. So I wasn't around anyone, just kind of doing my thing, talking to myself. And probably that's what, looking up and seeing your friends and enjoying the moment, because there's not as many of those moments in the future as there were in the past, I realize. So it was a great day of reflection. Wish I knew who the guy's name is or had anything. I wish he would have said, "Hey, I'm Lou," or something, but I got nothing on that, so I can't even make the episode based on the guy's name. But anyways, that was probably around 2000, just around the time Trevor's born, probably that period of time, definitely before Randy and Greg and I were spending a lot of time in the mountains in the early 2000s, and towards the end of my solo sojourn through the mountain period of the 90s. So I hope you enjoyed that. Summertime is here. The triple digits are on their way. The time we spend running around the mountains is going to become fewer and further between for a while. But I hope everyone has a great week. I hope everybody enjoyed this Chasing Legends. And I hope everyone's had a great weekend, because we're filming this on a Sunday evening. And I hope everybody catches back up with us with any questions. Maybe they have some answers for me on things. But a number of people on our Friday Live podcast. So until the next time, always remember, that individual never asked my name, but you know my name. I'm Wayne Tuttle. You're not. And this was Chasing Legends.